Hey there and welcome to this Sea Power tutorial. We're going to be discussing detection and stealth. It's going to be an overview of the various sensors, their usage, and also how you can stay concealed. Insofar that is possible in this game of radar. Now, let's go over the various ways you can detect another unit. Currently I'm operating with this Ticonderoga class cruiser. Over here I have a freighter. If you look at the tactical display here, you can see it says merchant and then V. V says visual. That's your first way of detecting something. You just look out the window and you go, hold on. There's something over there, and over there it's very tiny, but you can just make out that freighter. This is one way to detect it. Of course, the bigger the target, the easier it is to detect. Now, you can have your ship itself go out there and try and detect something. If you don't want to do that, you can also tell somebody else to go out there and detect something. Something like a helicopter. Because losing a helicopter is generally, let's say it's a bit sad, because it is a useful asset and they are manned by brave pilots, but it is better to lose just a helicopter than to lose your whole ship. So what I have done now is launch my helicopter, and right now I don't want to be detected just yet. I just want to send out my helicopter and have a look at what else is out there. Because there is another ship out here, fairly close, and it is a sampan. It's a small fishing boat. But because it is so small, it's going to take a little bit longer to actually get a detection on. So visual, while one of the systems that you can use, there it is. It is one of the systems that you can use to detect something, but it's a bit of a last resort. Because this means, hold on, there is something there, but of course if this is within 20 miles of my ship, and my helicopter only picked it up at about 6.5 miles, that means that it's probably within weapons range at that point. So you better not have to wait until such a moment. It also says meager. This means it's a small visual contact. We don't exactly know what it is. And the smaller a contact is, or the smaller a ship is, the smaller a plane is, or the smaller a helicopter, the more difficult it will be to detect. So only when I get closer does the game go, ah, yes, it's a sampan. It's a very, very small ship. Especially compared, of course, to that merchant or my Ticonderoga. That is one way to detect things. But what about radar? I've reloaded the scenario and this merchant is still detectable because it is so close. Now, when I go over here to the bottom right hand side, I have MCON, and over here you can select all the sensors that you want active. In this case, I'm going to turn on my surface search radar. And you can see that the merchant now changes to V/R, and it's not virtual reality. That is visual and radar. So we have them on more than one detection platform. We have them both spotted and we have them on radar. But where's the sampan? Well, the sampan is so small that it's not getting picked up by radar. It doesn't have a large enough profile. This cargo ship has a very large profile. The sampan does not. So once again, I'm going to launch my helicopter to try and assist with the detection. The helicopter is now on its way northeast. Again, this is where the sampan is supposedly going to be. And I have turned off the radar on the Ticonderoga. The cruiser is now under what they call MCON, emission control. It is not making any electronic noise. The helicopter, however, at almost 6,000 feet, has essentially a better vantage. This radar dish is higher up. And because of that, it might be able to detect things from much farther away. Because the radar from the Ticonderoga can only go to the horizon and essentially no farther. So let's see what the surface search on this unit picks up, and there we go. There's the sampan. I can again see it's a radar echo meager, so it's a small contact. It's not going to be a very big thing, so most likely not a warship. And the helicopter has picked it up at about 10.5 mile range. So your radar in this case is a bit safer to use, rather than just waiting for your visual detection. Another way to detect other contacts is by using their radar. This is called electronic support measures, and some units have them, not all units do. So in this case I have added an Oliver Hazard Perry, which is assisting the Ticonderoga in the battle group. This is also why you want to have multiple different types of ships in a battle group, because they can assist each other and sort of fill each other's gaps. Looking at the Ticonderoga, this thing only has the optics, so basically looking at a window, an air search radar again, a surface search radar, and a hull-mounted sonar. It cannot detect the incoming radar signatures from other units. This one, the Oliver Hazard Perry class frigate, so this ship over here, can. And it can detect the bands of various different radars, but that's too in-depth for right now. Basically what this is saying, hey, there is a radar out there. I just don't exactly know where it is. But I do know that it's somewhere within that ellipsis. And based on the type of radar that I'm detecting, which is a fantail big bulge type radar, that has to be from a Tu-95RT. The last time we detected that was, well, right now, because the radar is active. And the first time we detected that was basically a second ago, so it's a very, very short loop. And this way, they might not know where I am, because I'm quite far away, but I know more or less where they are, and I have not given my position away. And giving your position away in sea power is critical. It can mean the difference between life and death, especially if you are not detected yet. You throw on your radar, you might get detected, and all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of missiles coming in. So electronic support measures just means basically staying quiet. I'm not using a helicopter, I'm not using my own radar, and most likely, the enemy has not detected me yet. Keep in mind though, not all ships can do that. In this case the Perry, yes, they have that system. The Ticonderoga does not. So again, emphasis on having different types of units in a surface action group definitely helps. It's like having different tools in your toolkits. Another way of detecting things is using sonar, and this is where things can get a little complex, because there is a lot of the stuff that you can know, and some of it you need to know about detecting things with sonar. Sonar is basically listening. It's sound, navigation, and ranging. So with that, you're able to detect something, and you're able to find a range on it, if you have enough time to listen in on it. At the moment, I have the Ticonderoga over here, and I have an Oliver Hazard Perry class frigate. This thing is mostly specialized in anti-submarine warfare. So this is going to be a very useful asset when dealing with submarines. If you have a look over here at the bottom right hand side under MCON, I'm currently under MCON conditions. I'm not making any noise with the radar. I am going to, however, make noise with the active sonar. I want to send an active sound wave into the water. And then you hear that weep, and that's the sonar. So you're basically pinging a front of the ship and potentially having that sound wave bounce off of something, like a submarine, coming back, and then you have a detection. And you go, okay, there's something out there. That's one way of using sonar. Active sonar, at least in my experience with the game so far, has really rarely yielded a contact. Passive sonar is much more reliable. And passive sonar is basically just listening. Having a couple of sensors in the water in order to try and detect something. Now the Ticonderoga also comes with active sonar, so I can turn that on. And beyond that, they don't really have much. Passive sonar, which they do have, is on all the time. This is both an active sonar, medium frequency active, and passive. You can see that at passive range I can detect a 35 kilometer range. At active I can only detect a 20 kilometer range. So passive in this case is more likely to yield results. However, the sonar array is in the bow of the ship. Behind the ship you got the propellers right there on the aft. So this means that behind myself I cannot really detect anything. But what if you could? And that's what the Perry can do. Because the Perry has a towed sonar array. You can deploy this towed sonar array. And over here you can see that it is coming out of the ship. Right there. Now, you have two options with a sonar array, or rather towed array in this case. You can deploy it above the layer or below the layer. Imagine, if you will, that the sea, and at least on some locations, is carved up into various layers. Some layers are warmer, or some layers are more salty than others. And this means that sometimes you cannot detect anything below a layer. It's like you have a sort of, like a physical layer in the ocean. You cannot detect something below the layer unless it's making a lot of noise. Similarly, something below the layer cannot really detect something above the layer unless it is making a lot of noise. Now, in this case, my towed array is streamed. So I have this large sonar array behind the ship, which is just listening. You can see it's still being streamed. There's still more coming off of it. Some submarines also have this towed array to just try and listen behind themselves, because like surface ships, they only have sonar arrays in the bow, and basically behind them, they're pretty deaf. When it comes to sonar, you also want to be traveling not too fast. Because the faster you travel, the more noise you make, and the faster that set of hydrophones is dragged through the water. Or the faster the set of hydrophones over there is pushed through the water. So in this case, it definitely helps to slow down. I'm going to detach the Perry from this formation. I'm going to tell it to slow down to 1/3. At that point, I am not making as much noise. And hey, what is that? Now, because I have already used the dev tool in this scenario to make sure this thing is on weapons hold, you can actually immediately see what it is. It's a Victor 2. But the Perry actually doesn't know that yet. All we know is that this thing is a submerged contact, and that is indicated by the S. We had V for visual, we had S for sonar, and we had the R for radar. You also had the E for emissions, so that was the Tu-95 with their active radar. The Perry, at the moment, has lost the track as it's trying to identify it. But as it's doing so, it's increasing speed, trying to get up to 23 knots, which I don't really want to do. So I'm going to slow it right back down. And as we're going to slow down, I will be able to detect the submarine again. This, however, is a bit limited in its efficiency, because it means that that submarine is within 8 miles of my frigate. Most submarines have weapons which can shoot farther than that. In this case, they have a weapon out to 27 miles. So this submarine, if it wanted me dead, it would have shot already. And it probably would have killed me already as well. Yep, we know it's a hostile submerged submarine now. As you are maneuvering, you might also sometimes lose the contact. In this case, I sort of know where it is, or rather where it was, but I don't have an active detection on it. That also has to do with that sonar array. It is not like a steel cable dragging directly behind the ship. I'm trying to show you, it's at an angle right now, so I'm going to have to kind of wait until that sonar array levels out, and then I might be able to detect it again. But what if I don't want to wait for my towed array to detect something? What if I want to be a bit more active about my detections? That's where the helicopters comes in. In this case, I have an SH-2F, so a Sea Sprite, much akin to the one on the Ticonderoga, and it is armed with sonobuoys. These are basically passive sonar systems that you drop into the water. So if I tell this helicopter to go here, I can then have it drop a sonobuoy. You do that by clicking over here, and then right-clicking where you want that sonobuoy to be deployed. The sonobuoy is then going to just kind of sit there and listen, and tell you what it hears. So it's like an off-platform sensor. It is not attached to the ship, and it can transmit to the ship, but it cannot do anything beyond that. It cannot shoot at anything, it doesn't carry torpedoes, it is just a sensor. Now, in previous versions of this game, and this is important to know if you have seen previous videos, you could detect surface ships with sonobuoys. That is no longer the case. You can no longer detect you can no longer detect surface ships with sonobuoys. And that means it's not just dropping a whole net of sonobuoys in front of you and hoping that you can hear the enemy. Realism, I don't think it's that realistic. However, for gameplay purposes, I fully understand, because it was a bit too easy. The helicopter's now going to drop that sonobuoy. There we go. Buoy away. The buoy is now in the water, and it's basically a sonar with a buoy, so it has something above the water, and it's capable of detecting things. And hello, there you are again. So now I can detect this submarine again, even if my Oliver Hazard Perry, my frigate, isn't actively detecting it. And what you want to do if you have a group of ships and you're trying to, let's say, head, in this case, generally north, what you want to do is make sure that you have sonobuoys in front of your formation. That is where the helicopters are an immense asset, because they can do that. They can drop sonobuoys in front of your group. So what I'm going to do now is just deploy a couple of sonobuoys in the general direction of travel of that Ticonderoga. And as long as you're within 15 miles, so 15 miles of a sonobuoy, you will be able to use it as a detection platform. Now, I happen to know that there was a submarine there. But this can happen. that all of a sudden you suddenly detect something. And you go, hold on. That is actually quite close. That's 11 miles out from my Ticonderoga or whatever other surface unit you have. This can be quite dangerous. So in case of submarine or anti-submarine warfare, definitely use sonar buoys often. Drop them, use them to listen, and maybe you'll catch a submarine. You never know. Another way of detecting submarines is using the MAD, the Magnetic Anomaly Detector. The way it works is that the Earth has its own magnetic field. And a submarine is large enough to cause a disruption between the Earth magnetic field and the sensor over there. So the sensor's suddenly going, hold on. There's something down there. There's something interfering with my general detection. Now, in this case, I'm going to have to fly directly over that submarine in order to find it. But once you fly over it with a MAD, you instantly know where it is. Unfortunately, I'm not picking it up anymore between the Perry and the sonar buoy. So first, I'm going to have to drop another sonar buoy, because I know it's generally within this direction, but I don't exactly know where it is. So we're going to have to find it first. Let's drop a sonar buoy there. And there he is. Now I have him on sonar, the S. So now I'm going to go and fly over him to have an exact confirmation of its position. Important to note is that you have to be low with these helicopters. Generally, with most MAD equipment, that is. So I'm going to go down to 20 feet. It's about 8 meters above the water. And that's when the MAD sensor gets streamed behind the helicopter. It's now being towed along the helicopter, essentially. It's not into the water, but it's kind of close. And what I'm going to do now is fly over this thing to get a confirmation. And once I do, you'll see that this thing is going to get not only an S, but it's going to get another letter. Of course, we already have it fully identified right now, so that's a bit of a bonus. There. S/M. Magnetic Anomaly, semi-small. So there's something down there that's giving off enough of a, let's say, a metallic signature that is interfering with the Earth magnetic field. And that is another way that you can detect submarines. Of course, the magnetic anomaly detector is not that efficient. It is not like you'll be able to just calm an entire area like that, because your helicopter has fuel. And the longer that you fly it, the closer or the smaller that circle becomes. And at some point, you will have to go back to your mothership or your airbase and try and get some additional fuel. Sonar buoys are generally the first way of detecting something, such as a submarine. And the magnetic anomaly detector is more there as a confirmation way. So you're flying over where that submarine is supposedly going to be. And then you can get that confirmation using magnetic anomaly detector. So, recap, we have visual. Basically looking out a window and going, hold on, there's something there. You have radar, which is, I am using my own radar to detect something. I can use the surface search, I can use the air search. And when I do that, I suddenly get a better detection on this Tu-95, because it's now radar, and I get a large detection from that merchant. So that's the radar option. I can also just use the electronic signals measurements, which is the E, by basically not doing anything. Just having that on a ship. You don't have to turn it on, you don't have to use a sensor for it, it just happens. And then there's sonar. Sonar is listening in with either sonar buoys, with the towed array, with the active sonar. Some helicopters have a dipping sonar, which is basically a sonar array on a cable that you just dip into the water. And then there's also the magnetic anomaly detector. How do you prevent getting detected when all of these platforms and all these sensors are available? Let's move on to that. How do you stay concealed in this game? How do you stay undetected? First thing, don't use your radar. In this case, I am under MCON. I'm not using my air search radar, I'm not using my surface search radar, I'm not using my active sonar. I can use a towed decoy in case I suspect there's a submarine, but I've since removed those from this particular mission. What I'm going to do now is use a helicopter. I'm going to use a helicopter as a sort of off-ship radar platform and use that to make sure that I have a radar in the air, but not where the ship is. If I activate my radar now, the enemy which is due to my north, knows that there's something out here, because their own ESM, their own electronic support measures, are detecting my helicopter. So what I want to do is present a sort of offset radar signature. I want to make sure that I'm at least some distance away from my main ships. So in this case, I'm about, let's say, 6 miles out. I'm going to go to about, let's say, 20, 25 miles out. That means that if somebody gets trigger happy and decides to send a wave of anti-ship missiles after my helicopter, they will miss. Because there's nothing here. There are no ships around. So now that I'm, what, I'm 16 miles out? Yeah, I think that's acceptable. I'm going to go up to a higher altitude. I'm going to go up to 6,000 feet. And the higher I am, the better my chances of detection are going to be. There's the sampan, still out there. I'm at 3,000 feet now. 4,000. 5,000. Neutral merchant has been identified. 6,000 feet. I am now 20 miles away from the Ticonderoga. Now I'm going to activate my surface search. And this means that it is possible that the enemy, which is again due north, knows that there is a radar signature here. Because I'm using my radar, so I can now be detected on their electronic support measures. Sometimes, if the enemy is really trigger happy, they might immediately send a surface-to-air missile after you. Because they know, hold on, that's an American air radar, it's mounted on a Sea Sprite, Sea Sprite's not friendly, we're going to shoot it down. So what I want to do is activate this radar for a couple seconds and then turn it off. Make sure you have that radar off. I'm going to go right back down in case I'm getting engaged, and I'm going to fly in a different direction. This way, if there is a missile coming for me, I have done at least as much as possible to try and avoid the death of this helicopter. Not entirely avoidable, but I can try at least. I'm going to move a couple of, let's say, miles or a couple of dozen miles, depending upon what sort of safety margin you want to keep up with. And I'm going to pop up. I'm going to go right back up to 6,000 feet. And I'm going to go slightly farther west. There. Now I'm going to activate my radar. I can still detect the sampan. I'm still not detecting anything else. And again, the enemy might now be confused. Because imagine what happened. I had my radar active here. I have my radar active here. They know it's a Sea Sprite radar. That's most likely going to be detected by their electronic support measures. But hold on, it came from here? Let's say the enemy's over there. First they're going, hold on, it came from there? And then they're going, well, wait, what? I'm now detecting it there? It could be the same helicopter, but they don't know that. So I'm trying to create confusion on their part by just popping up in different locations with my radar and then going right back down, turning the radar off and relocating to another position. This way, you're trying to make yourself unpredictable. Whereas if I had my Ticonderoga go active with its radar all the time, that would most likely be detected. Military radars are very powerful. Much more powerful than civilian radars, and because of that, it is basically saying, hey, here I am. Imagine using your own radar as trying to find somebody in a field at night with a flashlight. You can potentially see, I don't know, 50 meters or 100 feet in front of you with a very strong flashlight, but that flashlight will get detected from potentially a mile away or a kilometer and a half. So in that case, it is kind of risky to use your radar, and that's why I'm using the radar on the Sea Sprite and not the Ticonderoga, because I don't want to get attacked. I'm now at about 3,000 feet. I'm going to briefly activate the surface search again, and I'm still not detecting anything. But what has happened for the enemy now is that, hold on, now there's something there. If the enemy is indeed here, they're going, what the hell? Why is there another detection? Why is there another helicopter out there? Well, you don't really know if it's the same helicopter or another one. We just know that something is out there. So it is possible that it's the same helicopter, but unless helicopters transmit a very significant or distinct radar, it's not likely that you'll instantly have them, oh, hello, identified. There's a meager contact out there. 15 miles. Now, I can't spot it, but my helicopter pilot is somehow eagle-eyed and can see it at 15 miles out. So I'm going to try and get a brief confirmation with the surface search. And there we go, V/R. Unfortunately, I don't exactly know what it is. It can be anything of 26 plus 5 additional contacts, so I don't know. Let's try and investigate. Go MCON. So I'm once again going undetected, or at least trying to go undetected, although they might have me on their detection as well. In this case, there we go. We visually identified it as a Grisha 3 frigate. If you have a ship fully identified, you can then have a look at the unit model and go, hold on, that radar isn't spinning, that radar isn't spinning, they're not using radar. But I know exactly where it is. In this case, that Grisha, with its SAN-4 surface-to-air missile, can't do anything. I'm 12.5 miles out, he only has a range of 8, he can't shoot me. He might know that I'm there, but he can't shoot me. Unfortunately for him, I can shoot him. And that I can do without getting detected. Because I never got detected using the radar on the Ticonderoga. I just used the radar on the Sea Sprite. But the Ticonderoga has the RGM-84, harpoons. And I can now send a salvo of harpoons going off against this particular Grisha. So that's a way that you can stay undetected and still use your weapons, throwing out those missiles without getting detected. In this case, however, the enemy could go, hold on, I'm detecting missiles. I'm going to say those missiles came from somewhere, right? They came from over there. So what I'm going to do now with the Ticonderoga and the Oliver Perry is go all ahead flank and turn 90 degrees right, 90 degrees starboard, change the position of where the ships are. So that if this Grisha, and it's not really armed with anti-ship missiles, if this thing was armed with anti-ship missiles and it fires a snapshot, or it fires a missile right back at basically where those missiles came from, there's a chance that these two ships will survive. As for the survival of the Grisha, yeah, I kind of doubt that. It's trying to throw up a bit of chaff. It's trying to shoot my missiles down, but I very much doubt that it's going to actually get away with this. We're going to have one hit, potentially two, maybe three more. There's one, there's two. Yeah, they're definitely going to be dead. And there's three. Extreme damage on the Grisha. Ship eliminated. So I did this without getting detected. When it comes to sonar, however, the faster I move, the more noise I make. So for submarines, I am now becoming an easy target. And this is always where it's going to be a trade-off. Do you want to be fast but loud? Or do you want to be slow but quiet? And there is no real easy rule for that. So you're going to have to play around with that as per the conditions that you find in a particular scenario. Sometimes you might want to go fast. Sometimes you might want to creep along. For example, in a submarine, you want to be slow. You want to be silent. You want to be unexpected. As for your own ships, MCON is critical. Keep your air search and surface search off for as long as possible. The caveat with that, you might not see incoming threats. And that is a problem. Let me fire up another scenario. In this scenario, which you can find as the gauntlet scenario, I am just not going to use any radar whatsoever. I'm not going to use my aircraft, I'm just going to stay undetected. Or at least I'm going to not use any active sensors. And that can be extremely dangerous. Because I know in this scenario there's a flight of aircraft coming to you. If you are unable to detect said aircraft, you can instantly find yourself getting blown up. Where did that come from? Beats me. But one of my ships suddenly violently exploded. So in this case, it can be very, very dangerous to sail under MCON conditions. Let me try that again. This time around, I'm going to activate my air search and my surface search, and potentially I'll be able to detect some stuff, such as, I don't know, a couple of MiGs. And once I do, I'll be able to take evasive action, or at least offensive action against it. Right now, nothing there yet. Of course, normally you would also be launching your helicopter and using that as a radar picket in the way that I've just explained. But what if I don't have that? What if I just rely upon the sensors from one of these ships? When are they going to arrive? There. Look at how far I'm detecting them now. We are getting a detection at 65 miles. Now, this ship, or this aircraft, is doing 600 knots, which is way faster than a commercial airliner. There's 2 of them flying in a formation, and they're coming directly for me. So, in that case, you can be fairly certain that they're both hostile. And now I can activate my own defenses. I can use the Standard Missile 1, and the Standard Missile 1 has a range of 24 miles. That might still not be enough to shoot them down in time. I don't think that the Holt has a whole lot better, although, well, they've got the rim 7. They can shoot out to 10 miles. Still, we know that these are hostiles approaching fast, 50 miles out. There's also something else. There's another flight, which we also detected about 70 miles out. I'm going to tell my ship to go weapons free. And if these things get into range, my ship will immediately begin to engage them. We're about to hit that point. 27 miles out. The problem, however, is I am constantly radiating with the radar. I'm constantly giving up signatures going, hey, hello, here I am. There we go, there's 1 missile away. Here I am, come get me. So if you're facing, let's say, a more powerful Russian warship, which has missiles up to 300 nautical mile range, it's possible that they'll shoot you from way over the horizon without you even ever knowing that there was anything there. And this is always where activating your radar or not activating your radar is a bit of a dilemma. Do you activate early and risk getting detected, or do you activate too late and find yourself at the mercy of the enemy weapon systems? Looks like we're going to get 1 kill. Is the other missile going to get the other aircraft downed? Maybe. Yep, there we go. Job done. So in this case, I splashed those MiGs before they even got within weapons range. I can do that with the other ones as well, but there is definitely a risk of getting attacked if you do this. Again, I cannot really offer a quick do this every time and you'll win every time solution, because there isn't any. Sometimes you want to be aggressive with your radar and you will just want to have your air search and surface search on. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want to stay concealed, and sometimes you want to just wait out the enemy, have them make the first mistake by activating their radars, and then have them get killed off first by your weapon systems. It all depends on the platform, it depends on the mission, it depends on your opportunities and your choices in any given scenario. Now, I hope that this was useful to you. If you have any additions, please let me know down below in the comments. I am, again, not going to be able to do a complete overview in this video because it would last for several hours. And there's, again, not really any one rule for do this every time. Although having a radar picket, so a helicopter that you pop up every now and then, definitely helps. It is almost always a good idea to have that. As with that, thank you for watching. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, leave those down below in the comments. If you have any additions, leave those too for other people so we can get a more concise and more effective tutorial. And good luck on the high seas of sea power.